this weather for the rest of the day?
Definitely the rest of the day. It's going to be cloudy, cool with areas of rain. So keep that in mind. Here's a look at satellite imagery with radar put together to show you that this was really a messy front that crossed through late last night. So it's leaving this tail of clouds and periods of rain showers that you see here on your screen. So we're going to take a close-up view of the radar to show you in closer detail that we do have rain out there. And it's going between light to moderate around parts of Broward County into Lighthouse Point, Coral Springs, even Fort Lauderdale, 595, you name it, Weston. You're getting your fair share of some wet weather now, but there are some pockets of dry time, especially in Hialeah. But then you take a look at the coastline, Sunny Isles, Aventura, Miami Beach, getting some moderate rain, consistent around southern Miami-Dade and the upper Florida Keys, Isla Mirada getting some shower activity, but the middle Florida Keys, at least a good portion, mostly dry. As far as temperature readings are concerned, we've cooled off, and it looks like today we're staying in the 60s. More details on this coming up in a few minutes. Good morning, South Florida. We are waking up to a lot of cloud cover, and there are areas of rain out there. So keep that in mind as you're heading out. You're going to encounter some slick roadways, so please proceed with caution. And here's a look at the local storm tracking radar in closer detail. Broward County, the rain here is pretty widespread. So it's going from very light to pockets of moderate rain in Coral Springs along the Sawgrass, Sunrise, Tamarack, all the way south through Plantation and 595 in Weston. Davie, even Cooper City, getting your fair share of wet weather, even along the immediate coastline into Fort Lauderdale and Deerfield Beach. In Miami-Dade County, we also have moderate rain here from the coastline, Key Biscayne, Miami Beach, heading south through Coral Gables, all the way into Homestead. And around the Florida Keys, it's more hit or miss. There are areas of dry conditions, but then around upper portions like Key Largo, Isla Mirada, different story, and lower Florida Keys between Big Coppic, Key and Key West, dealing with some lighter periods of rain. But it is cold around other parts of the country, including northern sections of the state, where we have a freeze warning. We also have an extreme cold weather watch and freeze concerns around the deep south. And all of these advisories stretch into parts of Texas at this hour, and it's all because of a powerful winter storm. Now, winds are shifting out of the north. That's why it's a bit coolish out there too. Aside from the rain, these winds anywhere between 7 to 18 miles per hour, running a good 9 to 10 degrees cooler at this time versus yesterday. It's 62 in Fort Lauderdale, 60 in Plantation, 62 in Pembroke Pines, and for Hialeah it's 62, the Grove 63, heading south, Homestead 64, and we have 60s as well in the Florida Keys, and we're going to stay stuck in the 60s pretty much today if the clouds can't manage to break. And it's all because of a front that actually crossed through the region, but it's going to stay stuck here. Not enough of clearing will happen just yet. And it seems like along this front, another storm system will be brewing in the Gulf, and that is why it's going to enhance the snow and freeze concerns around the deep south. But bands of rain, cool winds still continue for us all the way through Wednesday. Your boating forecast is a small craft advisory all around through the Keys. Rough, choppy conditions, not the best day to be out there. It's going to be a dreary one. 12:15 is the next high tide in Fort Lauderdale. Highs today in the upper 60s. Cloudy, rainy, feeling cool tonight with in and out rain. And on your extended outlook, South Florida, it does look like we'll start to see even more sunshine as we close out the week. That's your 7 on 7 forecast. 7 News Team Florida.
First look for us. Hey, Viv, good morning.
Good morning. And there's nothing wrong with looking ahead to the end of the week, South Florida, but we are definitely waking up to periods of clouds and areas of rain, and it's all associated to a front. And this front is a messy kind of front that hasn't completely cleared, and it's going to stay stuck over the region, providing for these clouds and periods of rain showers. And right now, if you're planning on heading out, make sure that you have the rain gear with you and maybe give yourselves extra time to get to your destinations this morning. Right now in Broward County, we have pretty much widespread rain. The heaviest of the rain is between Lighthouse Point, Deerfield Beach, all the way through Oakland Park, Pompano, Fort Lauderdale. And then the rain is lighter but steady along the Sawgrass Expressway between Coral Springs, Weston, Davie through I-75. In Miami-Dade County, light rain in North Miami, more moderate into the airport, heading south through Homestead and the upper Florida Keys, but hit or miss activity around the lower Florida Keys. As far as temperature readings are concerned, we've cooled down into the low 60s and we're going to stay in the 60s throughout the entire day if the clouds can't break. More details on this coming up in a few minutes. Morning, South Florida. We are waking up to periods of clouds, rain, and also cool-like temperatures. And if your commute takes you around town, it's going to be wet in a lot of areas. So make sure that you give yourselves extra time heading outside the door this morning. Around coastal Broward between Lighthouse Point and Fort Lauderdale, we have light, moderate rain, lighter periods of rain out west through Coral Springs, Parkland, and the Sawgrass, heading south through parts of 595. But Weston and Davie now getting moderate shower activity. It's moderate, pretty much widespread in Miami-Dade County at this time, so please proceed with caution. Around the Florida Keys, there are brief breaks from the wet weather. We do have some light rain in Key Largo. Also around lower portions, anywhere between Big Coppic Key and Key West at this hour. But there are cold weather advisories that stretch from the Panhandle through the Gulf Coast states, and this is significant, and that's because of a developing winter storm. There's pretty much an extreme cold weather warning, cold weather watch, also freeze warning for parts of the Panhandle, and freeze watches and warnings that extend all the way into Texas. And we're going to show you why. Right now, winds are out of the north in response to a front that crossed through yesterday, and it really didn't clear, but temperatures have cooled down a good 8 to 11 degrees. It is 62 in Fort Lauderdale, 58 degrees in Plantation, and in Miami-Dade County, North Miami at 58, 61 Hialeah, 61 in Homestead, low to mid 60s across the Florida Keys, right now 64 in Key West. So we have this front stuck near the area, so it's providing for the clouds and rain showers, but along the front, we're going to get these little impulses of energy, low pressure systems that cross through, and that's why it's going to keep things pretty damp across the region. But then along this front, another low pressure system and a stronger one forms, and that's where the freezing rain and snow will impact the Gulf Coast states into Tuesday and Wednesday, migrate into the mid-Atlantic region. But eventually after Wednesday, we're going to start to see some clearing. Small craft advisory in effect. Biscayne Bay choppy, and around the Florida Keys, coastal waters are rough with an advisory as well, 5 to 9 foot seas beyond the reef. And the next tide cycle will be low tide, 6:31 for you in Miami. Highs today in the upper 60s, feeling cool, cloudy, rainy. Tonight, more of the same in the 60s, a few spots in the 50s in the western suburbs with your extended outlook calling for improving weather conditions after Wednesday. But then another significant front moves in, and we're going to be in the 50s and 40s this upcoming weekend. Metro 7 on 7 forecast.
Wet roads out there to start the day, Viv.
I know. Unfortunately, it is going to be a dreary looking day. It is going to be cloudy, cool with areas of rain. And that's what our day planner is calling. And we had a front crossed through yesterday. So late in the day, we saw a transition from sunny skies to cloudy conditions as this front settled in, but it's not a clean passage. And that's why we will have these clouds and about a 50% rain chance in the forecast. Temperatures today are going to stay stuck in the upper 60s if the clouds can't manage to break. So yes, a cool day overall. But let's get you out the door because a lot of you will need to get to your destinations this morning, and count on having the rain gear with you, but pack the patience too because the roadways are wet and slick. So we want you to be extra cautious. And in Broward County, we do have light, steady rain from Deerfield Beach, Lighthouse Point into Pompano, Oakland Park, through Fort Lauderdale, 595, and Dania Beach. But then you move out west, and we have moderate rain in the Sawgrass Expressway. If it takes you through Coral Springs, Margate, Tamarack, even 595 into Weston and US 27. Davie, you're getting your fair share of some wet weather. And then we go from light rain to moderate rain in Pembroke Pines and Miramar through the 75. In Miami-Dade County, widespread activity as well here through I-95, heading south through Ives Estates, North Miami and Miami Shores, the coastline, even to getting into the action, Miami Beach, Sunny Isles, Bay Harbor Islands getting some activity there, and then it is moderate and steady, unfortunately, if it takes you between the Turnpike and US 1 through Naranja, Leisure City, Cutler Bay, Palmetto Bay, all the way through Florida City. The Florida Keys, this is where we've been seeing some breaks here and there in the wet weather, but we do have wet weather happening in North Key Largo, then a break into Tavernier and Isla Mirada, but some rain's going to be moving in from the south. But then a portion of the overseas highway here looking at dry conditions, but around Cudjoe Key, there's some light shower activity there. The bulk of the rain just decided to shift to the north and east. So here's a look at temperatures, because with the clouds, the rain, and the front that crossed through, we've actually cooled down. And right now it is 60 degrees in Pompano Beach and Fort Lauderdale. Good morning to you over in Hollywood at 62. Hialeah and Miami have managed to go down to 59, 60 in West Kendall and Homestead at this hour. And as we take a tour into the Florida Keys, temperature readings here are also in the low 60s. More details on your local weather coming up in 15 minutes. Good morning, South Florida. We are definitely going to be in for a cloudy, wet, cool day across the region. It is 59 in Miami, 60 in Fort Lauderdale, with calm to light winds out of the north and humidity levels high, despite the fact that we've had a front move through, but it's not a clean passage. It is basically hovering nearby, and that's why we're going to have areas of rain today. So plan accordingly. Right now around Broward County, we have widespread rain. Coral Springs, the Sawgrass Expressway, seeing moderate to heavier rain there. Even around Plantation, Lauderhill, 595, heading south through Pembroke Pines and the Turnpike, including Miramar, getting activity. In Miami-Dade County, along the coastline, downtown Miami, Coral Gables, heading south through Palmetto Bay, all the way west through Chrome Avenue, seeing wet weather. And around the Florida Keys, we have breaks from the activity, but where we do have rain, that's around upper portions near Key Largo and Tavernier. But a swift moving snowstorm moved across the northeast on Sunday, and in the last 12 hours we saw the snow migrate from the DC area all the way into the northeast, and it's looking much better now. But temperatures are definitely very cold, especially for the inauguration. Right now at 26 degrees, feels like temperatures in the teens, and this is your inauguration forecast with a temperature reading of 22 degrees by noon, and it'll feel more like 15. We're gonna have stay stuck in this moisture zone until another developing storm in the northern Gulf of Mexico kicks in, and then it'll start to clear conditions out for us, but by the end of the week. Your boating forecast has a small craft advisory in effect. Biscayne Bay choppy. It's rough in the Keys with an advisory. You get the idea. Not good to be out there. And at 6:31, that will be low tide for Miami. Highs today in the upper 60s, so feeling cool. We're going to stay in the 60s tonight. Few spots in the 50s with your extended outlook calling for another system to clear everything out of the way, and it'll be extremely cold over the weekend. That's your 7 on 7 forecast. 7 News Today in Florida. We'll be right back.
With the first forecast, Viv, it's going to be cold for the rest of the country. Not for us, though.
Not for us. I mean, we're going to be cool, but unfortunately, our forecast is looking more on the dreary side. So for your holiday, we're calling for mostly cloudy skies. It'll be coolish the entire day with temperatures just stuck in the 60s, and there will be areas of rain. So keep that in mind. And if you are heading out, take a look at the radar. There's green on your screen, and we do have periods of widespread widespread activity. It's going between light to moderate. So if it takes you through Broward County, you're definitely going to have your fair share of weather. The heaviest of the rain is along the coastline. Then we move on into Miami-Dade County, light rain in Miami Shores, North Miami and Hialeah. And then you head to the airport and parts of Fisher Island and Key Biscayne, and the rain is moderate to heavy. Around the upper Florida Keys, we have some activity. Around lower portions, we're getting breaks from the rain. And here's a look at satellite imagery and radar put together to show you that there's plenty of clouds, moisture streaming in from the Gulf into the state of Florida. And temperature wise, we're in the low 60s to start off. You may need a sweater, jacket throughout today. 60 in Fort Lauderdale, 59 in Miami. Your full forecast coming up in 15 minutes. Morning, South Florida. We had a front move into South Florida, but it didn't completely clear. So that is why we have these clouds streaming in and areas of wet weather. So please be extra cautious if you're going to be heading out throughout the area. And if it takes you in Broward County, we have light rain in Coral Springs, more moderate into Sunrise, moderate rain along the coastline into Fort Lauderdale, and there's this gusty downpour with the capability of producing some hail there. 595 light rain, but then out west between I-75 and US 27 into Weston, moderate shower activity. In Miami-Dade County, this is where the bulk of the rain is located. So yes, we're seeing moderate showers through the Turnpike heading south through US 1, Coral Gables, including Homestead. Around the Florida Keys, there's some dry time, especially around Marathon and Key Largo, but then Big Pine Key and Cudjoe Key, you're seeing some light showers. Now, the Big View is calling for extremely cold weather conditions for northern Florida and the Gulf Coast states, where there are freeze watches and warnings, extreme cold weather warnings in effect in anticipation of a developing storm system in the Gulf of Mexico. And we're going to break down the forecast in just a bit. Currently 60 in Fort Lauderdale, 59 in Miami. So on top of the clouds and the rain, it's also cool. And it's 61 in Sunrise, 57 in Davie, 62 in Pembroke Pines, 58 in Miami Shores, Hialeah, 59 in Opelika, the Gables, the Grove, 57, same for South Miami, 60 in Homestead. Around the Florida Keys in the low 60s, we have 62 in Marathon, 63 in Key West. So we had this front move in, it's nearby, and along this front, we're going to get an area of low pressure moving in. So tomorrow, most of the rain will be more north of the region, but there's going to be fewer showers. Low developed storm system in the Gulf, and that's what tracks across the state. Northern sections, freezing rain, snow possible in Florida, but not in South Florida. We're going to have still some wet weather here and some cool winds from the north. Small craft advisory in effect through the Florida Keys. Coastal waters, they're rough. Next tide cycle, that will be low tide for Key West in the 7 o'clock hour. Highs in the upper 60s. Overall, the entire day will be cool and wet at times, with your extended outlook calling for clearing sometime on Thursday. And that's your 7 on 7 forecast.
First forecast. Hey, Viv.
Hey there. And yes, a bitter blast of cold air is spilling over much of the country except here in South Florida. But today will be cloudy, cool, and with areas of rain. So plan accordingly. Our high temperature for the day only at 68 degrees. We had a front cross through the region late last night, and it's hanging nearby. So this isn't a clean sweep. And that is why we have these areas of clouds and rain showers out there. So we really want you to be extra cautious. Roadways are slick out there. Lighter periods of rain in northern Broward, moderate along Dania Beach and Hollywood. In Miami-Dade County, we're starting to see some breaks here and there in Hialeah, but along the Turnpike and Doral, moderate rain there, also into downtown Miami and I-95. Florida Keys, hit or miss activity. Looking at some rain around the 7 Mile Bridge into Marathon, but you could clearly see the stream of clouds and where the front's located, because we do have that rain moving in from the Gulf of Mexico, and temperatures have cooled down into the upper 50s to low 60s. Your full forecast coming up in a few minutes. Good morning, South Florida. Waking up to cloudy, cool, conditions with areas of rain. It is 58 in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, 59 in West Kendall to 64 in Key West. The wind north-northwest 9 to 11 miles per hour, humidity high, and that's because there's moisture around, even though we had a front cross through late last night and it's hovering nearby. It wasn't a clean sweep, so we're going to be stuck with the clouds and rain showers. So if your commute takes you through Broward County, here and there we have breaks from the rain, but right now along I-95 into Fort Lauderdale, 595, the Turnpike and Pembroke Pines, there's some light periods of rain, even along parts of I-75 into US 27 and Miramar. In Miami-Dade County, the rain is moderate and more steady around Doral, the Turnpike, Sweetwater, Kendall Lakes and Kendall Drive, even through US 1, all the way south through Homestead. In the Florida Keys, breaks here and there from the wet weather, but now the upper and middle Florida Keys getting another round of rain showers. Now, there was a swift moving snowstorm across the mid-Atlantic and Northeast in the last 12 hours. Take a look at temperatures across the Northeast. Extremely cold right now in DC, 25, feeling more like 14. So as the inauguration begins at around noon, 22 degrees with a northwest wind at 13 miles per hour. Your boating forecast has a small craft advisory in effect. Biscayne Bay choppy. It is rough in the Keys. We also have an advisory. Not a good day to be out on the waters. And the next tide cycle, that will be low tide coming up in a few minutes, 7:37 in Key West. Highs today in the upper 60s. We're going to be cloudy, rainy, feeling cool all day long. 60s, 50s overnight with in and out rain showers. And I believe we'll see fewer heading into Tuesday. But until another system moves through, we will be with a chance of rain pretty much all the way through early Thursday. And then cold polar air potentially filters into South Florida for the weekend. That's your 7 on 7 forecast. We will be right back.
Here with all the details. Good morning, Viv.
Good morning. And on top of the clouds and the wet weather, we're going to add some cool air in the mix, but nothing as chilly as most of what the country is experiencing. So on this Martin Luther King Jr. Day, count on the clouds, the cool weather, and areas of rain showers. In fact, high temperatures today are only going to range in the upper 60s if clouds manage to break. Now here's a look at the radar, and if it takes you around town, we're starting to see these brief breaks in rain, but for the most part, it is going to be wet at times. So if it takes you through Broward County right now, light showers between Lighthouse Point and Fort Lauderdale, even 595 through I-75 heading south all the way into Miramar. And then in Miami-Dade County, this is where we have the heaviest of the rain. Hialeah, Opelika, the airport, even along I-95. All the way south through Coral Gables and US 1. Some shower activity light around the upper Florida Keys, lower Florida Keys starting to dry up. Your full forecast coming up in a few minutes. That's right. So the system, there was a system that crossed through yesterday, and it's left us with periods of clouds and also rain showers, but some cool air. Nothing as significant as other parts of the country are experiencing. And there was a swift snowstorm that pushed in across the mid-Atlantic and northeast. And then there's going to be another system brewing in the northern Gulf of Mexico. So the Gulf Coast states definitely need to be prepared for freezing rain and snow, and that includes northern Florida. So closer to home, we have the rain on the radar that unfortunately will be impacting your commute. So if it takes you through Broward County along I-95, there's some light rain into 595, heavier rain in Pembroke Pines, Hollywood and Dania Beach, also northern Miami-Dade and the coastline. But then out west along basically Chrome Avenue into Homestead, moderate shower activity there, but we're seeing breaks from the rain occasionally. So at times it will be wet, and that's going to be the case over the next several days. So here are the winter weather alerts for northern Florida that extend all the way into Texas, where there are freeze watches and warnings, winter weather advisories, extreme cold weather warnings, you name it. They're going to be experiencing it all. 58 degrees currently in Fort Lauderdale, 60 in Lauderdale by the Sea, 58 in Davie. And in northern Miami-Dade, it's 58 in Miami, the Gables, Coconut Grove, 57, 59 in Homestead, and we've cooled down into the low 60s in the Keys, Isla Mirada at 62. So yes, it'll be cloudy, cool, wet in most areas today. Tomorrow we'll see fewer showers, but periods of clouds hold and the cool weather. Then that area of low pressure materializes in the Gulf. It enhances basically the freezing rain and snow across the Gulf Coast states that will cross through northern Florida Wednesday morning, but we won't see clearing until Thursday. Small craft advisory in effect. Biscayne Bay choppy, rough in the Florida Keys with an advisory. Next tide cycle, that is going to be high tide at 12:15 in Fort Lauderdale. So for today, cloudy, rainy, feeling cool in the upper 60s and a few 50s heading into the overnight. But once that next system crosses through, it looks like we're going to get potentially a polar air mass settling into the weekend, where the 40s set to return on Saturday. And that's your 7 on 7 forecast.
Good morning.
And good morning in South Florida. Although it will feel nicer here, it won't look very nice across South Florida for the next several days. We had a front move in and it's going to be stuck nearby. So it's going to leave us with times of clouds and areas of rain showers. Now today, it's going to be a cool day overall because high temperatures alone will only be in the upper 60s. So here's a look at the local storm tracking radar to get you out the door. We do have some rain out there. It's not as widespread as it was, but there's still plenty of it out there. We have some brief breaks here in Broward County, but now another batch setting up shop around western areas along the Sawgrass Expressway, US 27 and Alligator Alley. Then we head into Miami-Dade County, lighter periods of rain heading south through Golden Beach, Sunny Isles, Aventura, Miami Beach and Fisher Island. And then around sections of Hialeah, we're seeing some light drizzles here. Okeechobee Road heading through the Turnpike and Doral. Unfortunately, the rain is more moderate and steady, and that steady rain is impacting your commute along the Turnpike and US 1. Brief breaks here along the Overseas Highway, but we are seeing some periods of light rain showers between the upper Florida Keys and lower Florida Keys into Key West. But here you can clearly see the stream of clouds and moisture across South Florida that will stick around. Temperatures upper 50s to low 60s. We have 60 degrees in Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood at 61, Hialeah 59, and good morning to you over in Miami, 58. Also in Kendall, 59 in Homestead. And as we move on into the Florida Keys, temperature readings have cooled down here into the low 60s as well. So when will we have clearing skies? Well, we're going to take a closer look at that coming up in my full forecast in about 15 minutes. Good morning, South Florida. We are waking up into the upper 50s to low 60s. We have 58 in Miami, Kendall, 60 in Pompano and Fort Lauderdale. So a cool, cloudy start with areas of rain. And winds have been variable, but they've been mainly out of the north to draw in the cooler air due to the passage of a front that crossed through late last night. But it's nearby, and it's a messy kind of front, leaving moisture across South Florida. So we're going to see periods of rain showers. And right now in northern Broward County, we have moderate rain here along the Sawgrass Expressway into Coral Springs, all the way south into Weston, and even 595 and I-75. Heading south into Miami-Dade County, we have moderate steady rain in downtown Miami, parts of the Gables, and heading all the way into Palmetto Bay along US 1. Florida Keys, this is where we're seeing breaks here and there from the wet weather, but now the upper Florida Keys getting activity. So we had a swift moving snowstorm across the mid-Atlantic and northeast. It is spilling Arctic air right now in DC, 26 degrees. It feels like 15. So for inauguration at noon, 22 degrees with a northwest wind at 13 miles per hour. But we have this moisture zone over us for a few days until another storm system clears the area. Your boating forecast calls for a small craft advisory to remain in effect. It's choppy, rough in the Keys. You get the idea, with the next tide cycle being high tide in the noon hour for Fort Lauderdale and Miami. Highs today in the upper 60s. Feeling cool. Tonight we'll do it all over again. 60s with a few 50s. And on your extended outlook, South Florida, we'll have another storm system move through, so that should clear skies out early Thursday. And then we get this push of Arctic air that will have us in the 50s come Friday morning and 40s for the weekend. That's your 7 on 7. And it is cloudy, cool, wet across South Florida due to the passage of a front last night that's hovering nearby and leaving moisture levels around, and some winds out of the north allowing cooler air to filter in. Right now it's 58 in Miami, 60 in Fort Lauderdale, 63 in Key West, with the northerly winds between 3 to 16 miles per hour. So we will stay stuck with these clouds for several days. I do believe tomorrow we'll see less rain than today, but the overall look will be gloomy across South Florida and generally cool. Heading into Wednesday, low pressure just deepens in the Gulf of Mexico, and it does create a swath of freezing rain and snow across the Gulf Coast states into northern Florida. So early Wednesday, we'll start to see improving conditions over northern Florida, but there will still be some clouds, rain showers around. On Thursday, I do believe early in the day, that's when skies will start to get clear out and it will be much brighter overall. Small craft advisory in effect. Biscayne Bay choppy, rough in the Keys with an advisory. 5 to 9 foot seas beyond the reef. We're going to get a high tide cycle at 12:44 in Miami. Highs today, upper 60s, and overnight similar readings, 60s with a few 50s mixed in there. And on your extended outlook, South Florida, by the end of the week we're going to get this push of colder air, and we'll be in the low 50s Friday, 40s by Saturday morning. That's your 7 on 7. Morning, South Florida, waking up to periods of clouds, wet weather, and cool conditions. And on the radar, we definitely have rain out there. So if your commute takes you through Broward County, this is where we have rain happening, and it's consistent, moderate along the Sawgrass, Coral Springs, even along the East Coast into Pompano, Oakland Park, and Fort Lauderdale. Heading south into Miami-Dade, especially Tamiami Trail, Miccosukee, all the way south into Homestead. We're seeing moderate rain, and this activity here right around Homestead could be producing some gusty winds as it heads northeast. Marathon, you're getting moderate rain showers, and that takes us through Layton. Lower Florida Keys around Cudjoe Key seeing some shower activity. But we have cold weather alerts, freeze warnings in effect, extreme cold weather watches and warnings for the panhandle of Florida and all the way into Texas, because a storm system is going to brew in the northern Gulf of Mexico. But there was a swift moving snowstorm on Sunday across the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. So for inauguration, look for a temperature reading of 22. So the cold is just getting enhanced because of that system that pushed through, and it's going to feel like the teens. Closer to home, cool for us, just on the cloudy side, 60 in Fort Lauderdale, 59 in Hollywood. And then as we move on into Miami Shores, 58 in Miami, 57 in the Gables, heading south to Homestead at 59. And around the Florida Keys, temperature readings here are in the lower 60s. Our forecast calls for the front that crossed through to stay nearby, leaving us with periods of rain showers. And we'll stay with periods of rain showers at least through the middle part of the week until another storm system pushes through. Small craft advisory in effect all the way through the Florida Keys. Coastal waters are rough, with high tide happening in the noon hour for Fort Lauderdale and Miami. Highs today in the upper 60s. We're going to do it all over again in the 50s and 60s overnight with some in and out rain. But we will have another front move in on Thursday, and that will set the stage for a very chilly weekend. That's your 7 on 7.
A little bit of cloud and not some wet weather, but Nothing like the rest of the country.
Nothing like the rest of the country, and it is very cold elsewhere. We're on the coolish side. We've woken up into the 60s, some spots in the 50s, but we have a lot of cloud cover, and there will be periods of rain showers too, due to the fact that we had a front cross through last night, but it's leaving moisture behind, and the moisture levels will remain high through a good portion of the week. So keep that in mind. Today we'll have periods of clouds. It's going to look dreary across South Florida. Coral Springs, Lighthouse Point seeing some wet weather. Now around Okeechobee Road into Hialeah, moderate rain there into Miami International Airport and the East Coast, Key Biscayne, Miami Beach, moderate rain. And it's starting to improve around southern Miami-Dade, with most of the activity pushing into Biscayne Bay. Around the upper and lower Florida Keys, we also have some wet weather to start things off. It is 61 in Fort Lauderdale, 60 in Miami, and your day planners calling for temperatures to stay stuck in the 60s. Upper 60s are the forecast highs if there are no breaks in the clouds. I'll be back with a whole lot more in a few minutes.